Welcome to Worthwhile Watches. I'm Rob. This is part 4 of a 5-part series of Rolex Submariner homage reviews with a final comparison at the end. Today we're looking at another popular Swiss-made dive watch with similar specs to the Steinhardt from part 3, but with some important differences. The Squale 1545 20 Atmos Classic. So let's find out if this is a worthwhile watch. Squale is a watch company that was founded in... Hey man, who you calling squalid? That's not cool. No, I said squale. Actually, it's pronounced squale, which is the French word for shark. In Italian, the word for shark is actually squalo. Nah man, it's squale. It's a squale. Woohoo! No, it is squale. It's squale. No, squale. 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 Okay, everyone, just stop. I'm saying Squale. That's pretty much how everyone says it. And now I barely have any time to talk about Squale's history. Well, here goes. Basically, Charles von Buren founded Squale in 1959. Squale produced cases for many watch brands including Blancpain, Tag Heuer, Zinn, Doxa, and more. Squale was headquartered in Milan, Italy until 2020 when Squale moved its headquarters to Chiasso, Switzerland. Okay, moving on to the specs. This is the Squale 1545 20 Atmos Classic Ceramic. A Submariner homage that seems to take its inspiration from the Submariners of the late 70s or early 80s. I'm not a vintage Rolex expert, but it looks a lot like some of the 16800 models from that time period. If you have more specific information about that, you can leave it in the comments if you'd like. Squale recently updated this model with updates to the case, bracelet, and the dial, which now has larger maxi-style indices. I might be tempted to upgrade, but I suspect the major issue that I have with this watch will still be a problem for me, but more on that later. The case is well made, with brushed top and polished side surfaces. The quality of the finish is good overall, though the brushing on top of the case is a bit coarse and doesn't match the brushed finish of the bracelet, but I don't really notice this while wearing it. I do like the case shape. It follows the contours of the 5-digit Submariners with narrower lugs, and the case does have some downward curvature at the lugs, making it hug the wrist slightly better than many sub-style cases. The signed crown is 7mm in diameter, similar to many other watches of this style, but it's quite wide and protrudes noticeably out of the case. This makes it extremely easy to grip and set the time, but it looks a bit out of proportion and off balance to me. Not really a big deal and not an issue for me in use, but if you're sensitive to the crown digging into the back of your hand, it might be something to consider. As the name suggests, this watch is water resistant to 20 atmospheres, or 200 meters. The case back is screw down. It's mostly brushed with a polished ring containing watch information and a simple Squale shark logo. This watch has dimensions that should be wearable for quite a wide range of wrist sizes. The case itself measures slightly under 40mm. It's hard to get a precise measurement, but my calipers show just over 39mm. The bezel itself overhangs the case slightly and measures exactly 40mm. I measure the thickness as 12.7mm, not including the Cyclops. The lug-to-lug is 47.7mm. However, the male end links do protrude significantly, bringing the total lug-to-lug measurement, including the end links, to 52mm. Lug width is 20mm, and the weight sized for my 6 3/4 inch wrist is 157 grams. The weight with all of the supplied links is 176 grams. The dial of this Squale is glossy black with applied indices. The indices are lume-filled and quite small. I do prefer larger indices for better visibility and more lume application. The color of the lume used here is a pale yellow, which is not my favorite. Especially on a black dial, I like the lume to be as close to white as possible to increase the contrast, and it just looks better to me. That yellowish lume can look a bit sickly. This dial has a double Squale logo, with one logo just under 12 o'clock and the shark logo just above 6 o'clock. Along with 20 ATM and Y1545. The logo under the 12 o'clock marker has the Von crown symbol, which always looks like it says lion to me. The crown is off-center, placed above the S, which might bother those who enjoy symmetry, but they will also likely be bothered by the 3 o'clock date window. The date is nicely done, however, with a printed frame around the cutout and good magnification from the Cyclops. The hands are Mercedes style, and in my opinion, look a little small for the dial. But overall, it's a nice looking dial with classic Submariner looks, but adding a little bit of its own personality and history to it. The crystal and Cyclops are both sapphire according to my tests. The crystal is flat with anti-reflective coating on the underside that does manage to cut down on a lot of the glare. There does seem to be a bit of a blue tint, but not enough to be distracting in normal use. The Cyclops is good, it's properly positioned, and it has 2.5 times magnification. The date is easily legible. The bezel itself is polished stainless steel and contains a black ceramic insert with markings that are faithful to the Submariner design, although the lume in the triangle appears to be placed directly into the insert rather than being a separate applied piece. The numbers and markers seem to be precisely cut and filled, and the scalloped bezel offers good enough grip to turn the bezel easily. The clicks are consistent, and the resistance is not too light or too stiff. There's a little bit of play, but not much at all, and the alignment is good. Overall, it's a nice bezel. Ticking away inside this Squale is the Sellita SW200-1, a Swiss-made 28,800 vibration per hour automatic movement with hand winding, hacking, and a 38-hour power reserve. This particular watch has run very well at around +3 to +4 seconds per day on the wrist. However, I have not worn it as much as I'd like, but more on that later. As far as the lume, it's not spectacular, but not terrible. Having such small indices, there's not a lot of space to cram a bunch of lume into the dial, so as you can see in this 20-minute time lapse, the 12, 6, and 9 o'clock indices fade much faster than the hands and circular indices, and none of it is particularly bright by the end of the test. In real-world use, this lume is noticeably dimmer than many other dive watches available. I suspect that the newer version of this watch with the larger indices will probably have better lume performance, but I haven't seen the new one in person to verify that. Now we have to discuss the major bummer that I have with this watch, the bracelet. The quality of the links is good, with solid links and end links. Each link is brushed on the top and bottom and polished on the sides. The links are adjusted with screws. End link fit to the case could be better. There's a little bit of play in the fit, but it's not too bad. The bracelet doesn't have a lot of taper, starting at 20 mm at the lugs and tapering to 18 mm at the clasp. The clasp itself is 20 mm. I do prefer a bracelet that tapers to 16 mm on a Submariner style watch, otherwise the proportions look a bit off to me. But I will say the head of this watch is a bit heavier than a lot of sub-style watches, so the more substantial bracelet does help balance the weight on the wrist. The clasp is the real problem with this bracelet. It's a friction clasp with a security fold-over. It features a Squale shark logo and has milled internals, which appear to be well made, but the clasp seems a bit cheap and unrefined. Prying it open can be difficult, and the metal used in the clasp seems a bit thin and light, and doesn't match the substantial build quality of the rest of the bracelet. There is a diver's extension in the clasp and 4 holes of micro adjust, and here's the problem. The watch does not fit me. The 4 micro adjust holes only offer about 7.5 mm of adjustment, and the link pins are 10 mm apart. And I happen to fall right in that in-between spot where adding a link makes it too big and removing a link makes it too tight. It seems like there should be room in the clasp for a couple more holes if there wasn't a diver's extension. The only way that I can get this watch to fit some of the time is to remove a link and wear it with the diver's extension out. But wearing a watch with a weird gap in the bracelet isn't ideal. So this watch gets almost no wrist time, simply because they didn't drill enough holes in the clasp or create half links for the bracelet. I did contact Squale, and they said that they have no half links and no plans to make them, and I haven't been able to find half links that are compatible with these 18 mm links. I could wear it on a rubber strap, but I prefer bracelets. So unfortunately, that one small detail makes this watch pretty much unwearable for me. But that's okay because there are so many choices out there, and trying to find the next one is just part of the fun of watch collecting. As far as the wearing experience, there is a lot to like. The 5-digit case shape sits nicely on the wrist. This watch is only 12.7 millimeters thick, but it seems taller than that on the wrist somehow. I like how the case is slightly contoured to hug the wrist a little bit more than most sub-style cases. The crown is nice to use, but does protrude quite a bit. If you wear your watch low on the wrist, this might be an issue for you. The bracelet does a nice job of supporting the watch, but is a bit wider than I like. The bezel is very nice to use, but the lume is not the best. But the major flaw is the lack of bracelet adjustability. To wrap things up, for a little over $600 new, this watch delivers a lot of quality features, especially considering the upgraded version that's now available. But it doesn't look like they upgraded the clasp, unfortunately. Honestly, all watches in this price range and above should have on-the-fly micro-adjust in my opinion, or at least have that as an option. This watch has a good solid movement and nice build quality, and could make an excellent watch for someone with a different sized wrist. Well, it's on to the last watch in this 5-part series next. The next one is quite a jump up in price over the others, but we'll see if that increase is justified next time. If you think you know what it is, leave a guess in the comments if you want to. I want to say thank you again to anyone who has watched, liked, subscribed, commented, or shared any of my recent videos. I really appreciate all of you, and it really helps as I try to get this channel up and running. And if you haven't seen the other videos in this 5-watch review, you can check out the playlist. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, no matter what's on your wrist, make your day worthwhile. Woohoo! Squale!